Ladies and germs, krakens and worms, welcome back to Grim Entertainment. Today we got another Commander deck rec for you. We're going to be getting into my take on Meren of Clan Nel Toth. If you guys like this content or the deck, give me the like, comment, maybe even subscribe if you're feeling generous, and let me know what you think. Before we get too far into this, I would like to give a shout out to Booster Therapy. I saw Brett's farewell video today. Pat and Brett, awesome dudes, been a patron for a while, loved every minute of what they did, and Brett honestly is one of the big inspirations to me behind doing these Commander deck recs. I got nothing but good things to say about those guys. It's a little sad they're leaving the community, but they left it better, that's for sure. So if you haven't checked them out, go see what you were missing. And with that said, Meren, Clan Nel Toth. She is a 4-drop, 2 colorless, 2 Golgari. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters that you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So every turn that she's out on the battlefield, you're either going to be picking a creature card to put into your hand, if it's too expensive, or if you have the experience counters to cover it, you're going to go ahead and put that right back onto the battlefield. So you know this is going to get out of hand. There's going to be some shenanigans. With that being said, let's get into it. Actually, wait. For those of you looking for just the deck list so you can see all the cards, I'm going to go ahead and give you about 10 seconds. All right, that's long enough. Well, let's get into it. We got 10 forests to start it out. We got 9 swamps after that. And then we get into our utility lands. Alright? So, Golgari. Reflecting Pool. Add mana of any type that you already control. Alright? Command Tower, everybody knows what that does. Darkboar Pathway flips into Slitherboar Pathway right there. So you got your black or green land. Those are pretty good. Might have to upgrade that into a full art eventually. We got Overgrown Tomb. It's the shock land. Blooming Marsh from, was that Kaladesh or Aether? Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control two or fewer other lands. Woodland Cemetery. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest or a swamp. Phyrexian Tower. We don't care about sacrificing because we're going to bring it back, so we're going to get 2 mana every time we sacrifice a creature. It gives us an outlet as well. We got Undergrowth Stadium, the continuation of the, I guess they're calling them crowd lands. They're command dual lands to me, but enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents, which you should. It's Commander, right? And we got Twilight Mire, the old black-green filter land. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. Add 1 colorless to your mana pool. Pay 2, choose a color, and add to your mana pool equal to your devotion of that color. So you can, as long as you got more than 2, you're gaining free mana on just the permanents on the field. Land of War Wastes. We got add colorless, or you can add black or green, but it deals the damage to you. We got Grim Backwoods. Another colorless mana thing, or you can pay 4 and sacrifice a creature to draw a card. Sometimes you actually have to do that, so it comes in handy. Tainted Wood, same thing, colorless. Add black or green to your mana pool if you have a swamp. And that's it for lands. Now we're going to get into creatures, and as always, I try to do everything. It's going to be lowest converted mana cost to highest, and it's going to be in the order of ramp removal and then utility, where possible. Deathrite Shaman, great card. Everybody knows this card's awesome. Helps you get a mana, helps you gain a life, helps you hurt your opponents, you know. It's very versatile. It's a 1/2 body for 1 mana. It's a great card. We got Caustic Caterpillar, 1 drop. Pay 2 and sacrifice it to destroy artifact or enchantment. Spore Frog. Kind of revealing what's behind there. Yeah, Spore Frog, 1 drop, sacrificing it to prevent all combat damage. So it's literally just a fog frog. Yeah. That thing will save the game if you can recur it. I've locked some people out. Sakura Tribe Elder, 2 drop, for a 1/1, but you're not ever going to use it really. You're going to sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped to give you a little ramp. Verdian Zealous, 2-drop. Zealot, excuse me. 2-drop. 2/1 Elf Warrior. You can attack with it if you need to, but more than likely you're going to pay 2, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Dream Devourer is a new addition. 2-drop, 0/3. Each non-land card in your hand without foretell has foretell. So everything gets foretell, and its foretell cost is basically its converted mana cost, and then minus 2 colorless. So I actually used this in a game last week, foretold about 3 cards, and I ended up overwhelming stampeding for the win. It's great. Foretell's a good mechanic, I'm telling you guys. Yavimaya Elder, 3-drop for 2/1. But when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. And then shuffle your library. And you can actually pay 2, sacrifice it, and then you get to draw a card, plus you get the 2 lands in your hand. So, that's a pretty good engine. Eternal Witness, 3-drop. Another 2/1. When it comes into the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand, whether it be a land, tutor, whatever you need. Wood Elves, another 3-drop. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a forest, put it onto the battlefield, not tapped, and just a forest, so you can go grab that shock land, that overgrown tomb, and then shuffle your library. Then we got, getting into the removal here, we got Fleshbag Marauder, 3/1. When you put it into the battlefield, each player, including yourself, is going to sacrifice a creature, so you're going to be getting rid of a lot of your own creatures, but, you know, we're going to constantly be bringing them back, too. Blade Crafter, it's just a better version of Fleshbag, because if anybody can't sacrifice a creature, then they discard a card. So at the very least, you're going to sacrifice this to itself, and hopefully you can get rid of some creatures from your opponents, or at least make them discard a card. Egan, God of Death, 3-drop for that 6/6 Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, you got to exile 2 cards from your graveyard, which is fine if you're ahead. And then if not, if you can't, you sacrifice Egan and draw a card. So you get a little sack outlet for himself if you can't take it. But you can also play him for the other side, and this is why these cards are good. I played him for the Throne of Death the last time, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you mill a card, helping you put stuff in the graveyard for you to get back. Or you can pay 3, exile a card from your a creature card from your graveyard to draw a card. So it's another little way to get some draw out if you're getting screwed in the game, you know. And then we got the old Solemn Simulacrum, however you want to say it. 4-drop. When he enters the battlefield, search your library for basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. When he dies, you get to draw a card. So you see what we're going for here. We're ramping a lot in this deck, and we're drawing a lot of cards so we can get into this nasty stuff at the end here. World Shaper, whenever it attacks, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and when it dies, you put all the land cards from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. So that's always a plus. That card, I feel like, is going to get more expensive since we just saw Omnath and everybody's into that landfall mechanic. You know, you have Resafety Earth, you can grab 10 lands out of your graveyard, but if you mill yourself, you can just put all the lands at once. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, Vindictive Lich, whatever you want to say. When it dies, it's a 4-drop, 4/1. When it dies, choose 1 or more, but each mode must target a different player. So usually I'll just play this, get rid of it, and then I got 3 opponents, and they're... One's sacrificing a creature, one's going to discard 2 cards, and the other one's going to lose 5 life. Pretty brutal. You know, if you only got 1 or 2 opponents, you can pick 1 or 2 modes. No problem. Mind Slicer, this is just rude. 4-drop for a 4/3, so it's already intimidating. It's only got 3 defense, though, so some smaller stuff can kill it. But when it's put into a graveyard from play, each player discards his or her hand. Each player. So if somebody makes the mistake of blocking with this, or you can get it sacked, you can take away your opponent's entire hand, and then we can kind of control the board state with Meren and some other creatures that way, you know? Brawn, just for fun, 4-drop. I'm usually trying to just sack this or discard it from my own hand. It's a 3/3 trample, but it's worth more to you in the graveyard, because as long as it's in your graveyard and you have a forest, all your creatures get trample. And then we got a 4-drop Creekwood Liege. It's a 2/2, but it gives other black creatures you control 1/1 and other green creatures you control 1/1. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, it's going to put out a 1/1 onto the 1/1 black and green worm onto the battlefield. That's actually going to be a 3/3 as long as this stays alive. Sweet little card. I like it. We got Turgrid, God of Fright. It's a 5-drop. with Menace 4/5. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you can put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So you've seen all the stuff we're already just making them get rid of everything and discard stuff. So, and this is basically letting you put that back on the battlefield whenever it happens. But again, you get to cheat. There's only 100 cards, but technically there's 102 because we got the backside here too. Turgid's Lantern's a 4-drop, and you can just tap it to make someone lose 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. You can also pay 4 to untap the Lantern. So I'm sure there's some shenanigans you could do in there that I haven't figured out yet. New edition, but I already like it in the deck. Runs pretty well. And you got Shriekmaw. It's a 5-drop for a 3/2 with Fear. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. But that evoke cost of 2 is what you're usually going to play it for. And you're going to just drop it on the battlefield and destroy a non-artifact, non-black creature, and then it goes away. And if you got Meren out there, you're getting those experience counters when you're doing that, you know. Acidic Slime, 5-drop for 2/2 Death Touch. And when it enters the battlefield, again, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. There's a lot of just absolutely smashing stuff off the battlefield with this deck. 5-drop Gary, Grey Merchant of Asphodel. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. And he's a 2/4. Pretty good card, especially in Meren when you can just keep bringing him back. Bring that thing back 2 or 3 times in mid to late game, and you're pretty much going to win the game. We got Sidisi, Undead Vizier. 4/6 Death Touch for 5-drop. And it has Exploit. I really like this mechanic. I hope they bring it back. When this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. When Sidisi, Undead Vizier exploits a creature, you may search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So as long as you exploit a card, you're basically demonic tutoring. Good stuff. We got Kodama of the East Tree. He's a 6-drop for a 6/6. Has Reach. And whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't put on the battlefield with this ability, you may put a permanent card of equal or lesser converted mana cost from your hand onto the battlefield. So anytime Meren's ability kicks, I can put something from my hand with equal or lesser onto the battlefield for free. And if we got out Strionic Resonator, which we may or may not have in this deck, hint hint, we could be doing that. We could be doing Meren's ability twice and then putting 2 cards from my hand onto the battlefield. So it's a great card. We got Grave Titan, 6-drop for a 6/6 Death Touch this time, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can put 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield. This is an awful proxy that I thought was funny to leave in here. At one point, Wormcoil Engine was absolutely expensive, and I didn't want to beat mine up anymore, so I threw this card in there. And as I was going through it, I was like, oh, that's right. I played this card for well over a year or 2. I have a couple Wormcoil Engines at this point. I just need to slide them into the deck, but I thought this was kind of funny to include because I literally leave them as they are so I can show you what I'm really playing with. Wormcoil is a 6-drop artifact, Death Touch and Lifelink for a 6/6. When it dies, you get a 3/3 Death Touch token and a 3/3 Lifelink token. I'll pop the Wormcoil up on the screen in the picture so you guys can see what the real card looks like, but I thought that was funny to include. We got Pathbreaker Ibex. It's a 6-drop for a 3/3, but when it attacks, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So I think the way I won with that Foretell game I was talking before was I pumped up Dream Devourer to like a 6/3, and then I played this card and Overwhelming Stampede and gave everything 6, and then gave everything at least 6+. It was an awesome combo. Really fun way to win. You're just swinging for like 80. Kakushio the Evening Star, 6-drop for a 5/5 flying dragon spirit, and when it enters the when it dies, each opponent loses 5 life, and then you'll gain life equal to the life lost this way. So if you're playing 3 other guys or gals, and you leave, they take 15 total, you're going to gain 15, not just 5. You get 5 for every 5 they lose. Awesome card. Super easy to bring it back if you got Meren. Sylvan Primordial, I'm pretty sure this is banned. But we don't care. We play with it anyways. We play banned cards. We're brutal in my group. 7-drop for a 6/8 with Reach. And I'll give you a little insight on why this might be banned. One time I played a game with a couple of my friends, and I purposely didn't play a card on turn 1. After I drew, I had to discard down to 7. I discarded Sylvan Primordial, and then the next turn, I played Reanimate for 1, brought this back onto the battlefield, took both of their lands, and then gained 2 lands over the top of them. And that's kind of why this card's broken, I think. But he's a 6/8 with reach, and when he enters the battlefield, for each opponent, destroy target non-creature permanent that player controls. For each permanent destroyed this way, search your library for a forest card, and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Broken. Protean Hulk. Oh god, no, it's not Sushi Hulk, thank god. 7-drop for a 6/6, and when it dies, you search your library for any number of creature cards with converted mana or with total converted mana cost 6 or less, and put them onto the battlefield. If you're thinking this works where you can grab any of the creatures in your entire library that are 6 or less and put them out, that's not how it works. Total converted mana cost. So you can grab a 2, a 3, and a 1. You can grab 2 3s. You can grab 3 2-cost creatures. But any total of 6. And it's always cool. You can go grab something that interacts well with each other. You saw the lower cost stuff that we have. There's some cool stuff to be done in this deck with that. Sepulchral Primordial, or Sepulchral, however you want to say it. 7-drop for a 5/4 with Intimidate, and when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So he's a 7-drop, 5/4 Intimidate, and he gives you multiple instances of Reanimate. That's nice. Then we got the old Terrasty Nasty T-Don, Terrastodon himself. It's an 8-drop for a 9/9. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. And for each permanent put into a graveyard this way, its controller creates a 3/3 elephant token. It's nasty. People actually will search this out of your deck or out of your graveyard to play it against you, much like Sylvan Primordial. Razaketh, the Foul-Blooded, 8-drop for an 8/8 flying trample, and he has pay 2 life and sacrifice another creature and Demonic Tutor. Then shuffle your library. Speaking of Reanimate, you got a Reanimate in there. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost for one black mana. Insanely good card. And then we got a little dual card here. You got Life and Death. I very rarely use the life side. It's just 1 green until end of turn. Makes all your lands 1/1 creatures. But if you have that Overwhelming Stampede or Pathbreaker Ibex, you can win a game with this. I usually use it for the death side, though. Pay 2, return target creature card from your graveyard to play, and lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Then we get into Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay is a 2-drop. Can't be countered by spells or abilities. Destroy target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. Golgari Charm. Another 2-drop. Choose one. All creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. Destroy target enchantment or regenerate each creature you control. I've used it for all 3. They're all viable, just depending on the situation. Then we got the old Assassin's Trophy. Destroy target permanent and opponent controls. Its controller may search this library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle. Not even tapped, just onto the battlefield. So that's a little bit of a downside if you're playing somebody that has blue, because they can put out a 1-drop and then potentially Flusterstorm you or something later. Tribute to the Wild, 2-drop for each, and it's an instant. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact or enchantment for 2. That seems like a much better card than the price of that suggests. Spring Cleaning. This is a fun card from, I think, Lorwyn. I wasn't playing Magic during this time, but I think that's what that symbol is. Destroy target enchantment for 2, and then you clash with an opponent, not even the person that you destroyed the enchantment of, any opponent. And if you win, destroy all enchantments all of your opponents control. And so by clashing, you just reveal the top card of your library, and whichever has the higher converted mana cost is who wins the clash. I mean, you know, with all the decks out there, you can kind of aim who's got the lowest converted mana cost chance that you're playing against, and then hopefully you win that. Good way to destroy all the enchantments your opponents control for 2 mana if you get lucky. Smallpox, 2-drop. I'm the Smallpox guy, for sure, in my pod. Each player loses 1 life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, then sacrifices a land. in my opinion, one of the most overpowered cards I've seen for 2 mana. Losing a life, discarding a card is already bad enough, and then you throw on sacrifice a creature, then sacrifice a land. Ugh, that's just dirty. Not fun to play against, unless you're the guy playing it and you have a backup plan. Green Sun Zenith, X and a forest to search your library for a green creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield, and then you shuffle your library. Then you shuffle Green Sun Zenith into your library. So you got to shuffle twice, which is a little weird, but that's how it works. Then we got a 3-drop, Victimize. Choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, sacrifice 1 creature, and if you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. I love doing that with Eternal Witness, because you get the value out of her right when you play her, and then you can sacrifice her to grab 2 better creatures that somebody wiped off the field. And odds are you're going to bring, if that's going down, you might even have Meren out there to bring Eternal Witness back. Lots of repetitive cycles going on. Bonus Hunger, 3-drop, instant speed with Ascend. So if you got 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, unless you have the City's Blessing. And if you do, in that case, each opponent will sacrifice half the creatures they control, rounded up. Oh, God. Finale of Eternity. 2 swamps and X. Destroy up to 3 target creatures with toughness X or less. If X is 10 or more, though, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, if you got 12, you can destroy 3 creatures that your opponents control, and then return all yours to the battlefield. Not bad. Buried Alive, 3-drop. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, and shuffle afterwards. So if we got just one of those, that's why that World Shaper is pretty good too. Kind of gives you that card every time it attacks. 4-drop, Natural Order. This card does not play the way it reads. I bought this specific version because I thought that it worked like this. I wanted to play and sacrifice Protean Hulk to this card. The Oracle text has been changed though, so the way this card actually reads is sacrifice a green creature, then search your deck for a green creature and put it into play. Shuffle your deck afterwards. I used to try to grab Protean Hulk and sack it, because that's the way the card reads, and we played it for a little while there, and then somebody was like, I don't think it works that way, and they looked up the rules, and sure enough, they changed it. Now we're getting into Overwhelming Stampede. This is the game winner from the last weekend that I had. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample, and XX, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Hopefully you got Terastodon out there. Everything's getting 9/9. Artifacts. Gotta have Soul Ring. Everybody knows what that does. Alter the Brood. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So I can make you mill every time I play anything. Altered Dementia. Sacrifice a creature to have target player mill mill cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power into their graveyard. Strionic Resonator, 2-drop, pay in 2 and tapping it to copy a triggered ability. You can copy Meren's ability or anything that's uses the words when, whenever, or at. That's a triggered ability. And then I believe Riku may be the only paid triggered ability. Lightning Greaves is a 2-drop, 0 equip cost. The equipped creature gets haste and shroud. The only downside of this is if you equip, say, Meren, you can't target her anymore either. She can't be the target of spells or abilities, even that you control. But the equip cost is free, so I run it over Swiftfoot Boots because I'm just looking for protection from Meren. Mirage Mirror, 3-drop, pay 2 to have it become a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. Haven't figured out a way to use that in an insane way yet, but it has come in handy a few times to copy somebody's Gilded Lotus or something for 2. Birthing Pod, technically a 4 or 3 and 2 life because it's Phyrexia mana. For an artifact that lets you pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice a creature and search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. You put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your library, and you can only activate that at sorcery speed. Then we got Hammer of Nazan. It's a 4-drop, and whenever it or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. So this will attach the first time for free to a creature, giving it +2/+0 and indestructible. And if this is on the battlefield, any other time you have an equipment enter the battlefield, you don't have to pay its equip cost. Pretty sweet. We got a 5-drop lifeline artifact. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is in play, you can basically just regenerate it at the end of turn. Eldrazi Monument, another 5-drop. All creatures you control gain +1/+1 and have flying and indestructible. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you got to sacrifice a creature, and if you can't, you sacrifice this. Animate Dead. It's got a wall of text. It's basically reanimate, but the enchanted creature gets -1/-0. But you can get into some weird combos with this. Not in this deck, but there's like a combo with Animate Dead, World Gorger Dragon, or something like that. I don't know. We'll probably find out about that later. Growing Rights of Itlimoc. This is a 3-drop. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 cards of your library, and you may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Growing Rights of Itlimoc. And when you transform it, it becomes Itlimoc, Cradle of the Sun, which is basically Gaia's Cradle. They figured out a way to put Gaia's Cradle onto a card, but you gotta flip into it. That way it's not really Gaia's Cradle, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I don't have $1,000 to spend on a Gaia's Cradle, so I'm gonna play Growing Rights of Itlimoc instead. And then you got Oppression. It's Old Urge the Saga enchantment, costs 3, and whenever a player successfully casts a spell, that player discards a card. That gets out of control quickly. I got another fairly new card, Court of Bounty, 4-drop enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Don't forget, if you're the Monarch, at the end of the turn, you get to draw an extra card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's a good start. Every turn, that's going to be happening, as long as this is on the field. Good start. But if you're the Monarch, instead, you may put a creature card or land card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's sweet. And then we got Leyline of the Void. If it's in your opening hand, you can start the game with it. And if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Love having that in your opening hand. We got Court of Ambition, another 4-drop enchantment, but this one's the black version. When Court of Ambition enters the battlefield, again, you become the Monarch. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. But if you're the Monarch, each opponent instead loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. That adds up quickly. 5-drop Dictate of Erebos, an enchantment with flash. And whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So if somebody tries to board wipe and you have the mana, just hold that in your hand, throw it down, and then whenever your stuff gets killed, they're going to have to get rid of all their stuff too. Aid from the Cowl. This has Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a permanent, you may put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So as long as I sacked something, bounced something, or someone killed something of mine, or exiled it, I'm going to get to reveal the top card of my library and put it into play if it's a permanent. For 5. Good enchantment. And we got one lonely planeswalker in the back. This is Vraska the Unseen, 5-drop. She comes in with 5 loyalty counters, and her +1 is until your next turn, whenever a creature deals damage to her, destroy it. Her -3 is to destroy target non-land permanent right out of the gate. And if you can hold off for 2 turns, her ultimate is to put 3 1/1 black assassin creatures onto the battlefield, and they have, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Yeah, that's my take on Meren of Clan Nel Toth. If you guys have any ideas, if I'm missing any combos that you think you absolutely need to be running in Meren, just let me know. Throw them down in the comment section. If you guys run Meren, I want to know. Do you run it different? Have you thought about running Meren? Just let me know in the comments. Again, if you guys enjoy the deck or the content, you're thinking about it, just take a minute, like, comment, subscribe on the video. Really helps me out, lets me know that you guys are liking what I'm doing, and helps the channel a lot. Thanks for watching, guys. Counterspells and combos.